Hey everyone, today we're going to talk about how I taught my daughter to stay safe from harassment and abuse, and how you can too. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. If this story helps you see something differently or gives you one more tool in your parenting kit, that's all I'm aiming for. Wherever you're watching from, morning in Saigon or bedtime in Houston, I'm really glad you're here. Now, let's listen to the compelling story in this video of mine. When my daughter was around 4 years old, I made a promise to myself. I promised that I would always be someone she could talk to about anything, even the scary stuff. Even the stuff that most adults sweep under the rug or whisper about when the kids aren't listening. Because here's the truth I learned the hard way. Silence is what predators count on. Not just the silence of kids who are too scared to speak up, but the silence of parents who avoid hard conversations. So I started with something simple: trust. Building it, nurturing it, reinforcing it. Not trust as in do what I say, but the kind of trust that says I've got your back. When she came to me one day, crying because someone at the park didn't let her play, I didn't brush it off with a "you'll be fine." I sat beside her, looked her in the eyes, and said, "That must have hurt. Want to tell me more?" That's how it starts. When your child knows you take the small hurts seriously, she's more likely to come to you with the big ones. I didn't wait for danger to come knocking to show her I'd be there. Every day, I looked for chances to prove it. When she made mistakes, I didn't shame her. I asked her what happened and how we could fix it together. When she was confused, I listened. When she was quiet, I noticed. These moments weren't dramatic, but they were seeds. And seeds grow. You see, most parents think these conversations start with, "Hey, we need to talk about something serious." But kids open up when they feel emotionally safe. Every day, not just on the big talks. It's not about delivering lectures. It's about building the kind of relationship where she knows you won't freak out if she tells you something. If anything like that happens, even if it feels weird or confusing. She nodded. The conversation was maybe 5 minutes, but that seed stuck. Fast forward 2 years, and she came home one day, silent and moody. I asked her if she was okay, and at first she said nothing. I gave her space. That night before bed, she whispered, "Can I tell you something?" And she did. A classmate had been saying things that made her uncomfortable. She wasn't sure if it was bad enough to tell. But she remembered our little talks. She remembered the movie. She remembered that I'd listen. That moment when your child chooses to tell you the hard stuff isn't born from one serious sit-down. It's born from hundreds of tiny moments where she tested your response and found safety. So my advice to every parent is this: don't wait. Start now. Build that bridge long before your daughter ever needs to run across it. Ask about her day and listen. Really listen, even if the stories feel small. Celebrate her honesty, even when it's hard to hear. When she tells you she's scared or unsure or even embarrassed, thank her for being brave enough to say it. I also made it a habit to talk about feelings openly, not just hers, but mine too. I'm frustrated because I had a hard day at work, or I'm worried about grandma right now. When kids see that even adults name and manage their feelings, they start to feel more confident doing the same. And you know what else helps? Apologizing. Yes, seriously. When I overreacted once, snapped at her over spilled juice, I came back and said, "I'm sorry, that wasn't fair to you." Those apologies taught her that being safe doesn't mean being perfect. It means being honest. It means being human. And that brings me to one more thing I want to leave you with in this section. Your daughter will watch everything. Not just what you say to her, but what you say about others. How you talk about women. How you react when someone interrupts her. Whether you protect her voice at the dinner table or dismiss her ideas, if she sees you treating her thoughts with respect, she'll start to believe they matter. So the first step in protecting our daughters? Be the safe place before the storm ever comes. Build the trust that lets her run to you, not away from you, when things get scary or confusing. And start now, not when it's already too late. When my daughter was 5, she started asking questions about her body. In the bathtub, brushing her hair, getting dressed, those were the moments when curiosity showed up. I used to feel awkward about it, but I realized something. If I didn't answer, someone else would. And that someone else might not have good intentions. So I decided we would talk about body boundaries early, honestly, and often. Not once, not as a one-time birds and bees conversation, but as an ongoing part of her life, just like brushing teeth or crossing the street. I started by teaching her the names of all her body parts, including the private ones. No nicknames, no cutesy metaphors. That's your vulva. That's your bottom. Just the truth, calmly and confidently. Why? Because when we give kids vague or silly names, it sends a subtle message. These parts are weird or embarrassing. And if something bad ever happens, they might not have the words to tell us clearly. Language matters. It's power. It's protection. Next, we talked about private parts. Not in a scary way. I told her, these are the parts of your body that are just for you. No one should touch them, look at them, or talk about them unless it's to keep you safe and healthy, like a doctor with me in the room. And then we practiced. Yep, role-playing. I'd say, what if someone at school wants to see your underwear? She'd shout, no. Then we'd giggle. And I'd say, that's right. What if someone touches your bottom when you don't want them to? She'd answer, tell them stop and tell you. And I'd smile and say, exactly. You always tell me. Even if you think it's your fault, even if they say it's a secret, you always, always tell me. That word, secret, became a big one in our home. I explained the difference between a surprise and a secret. A surprise is something we'll tell soon, like a birthday gift. A secret is something someone tells you not to tell, especially to me. And if someone says, you'll get in trouble for telling me, that's a big sign to tell me right away. She asked, what if they say they'll hurt me? And that was a hard one. But I said, if anyone says that, you still tell me. And I promise I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. You might be wondering, won't this scare her? Won't she start seeing danger everywhere? Actually, no. The opposite. These conversations made her more confident. Because now, instead of a vague sense that bad things happen, she had clear tools. She had phrases to use, people she could trust, and the belief that she had control over her own body. One day, at a family gathering, a well-meaning relative asked for a hug. My daughter said, no thank you, and looked at me. I gave her a little nod, and the moment passed. That was it. No fuss, no guilt trip, just a small win for her boundaries. That's another thing I had to unlearn. The idea that kids owe physical affection. They don't. Not to grandparents, not to friends, not even to me. So I stopped saying, give uncle a hug, and started saying, do you want to give a high five or just wave? I let her decide. Every time she chose, she practiced ownership over her body. And if she said no and someone looked offended, that was their issue, not hers. I protected her right to say no every time. We also talked about gut feelings. I said, if you ever feel yucky around someone, even if they're nice, even if you don't know why, tell me. She asked, even if it's a teacher? Yes, anyone. I didn't want her to think there were safe people based on titles. Safe people are the ones who make her feel safe, not the ones we tell her to trust automatically. I also kept books around the house that helped reinforce the lessons. Simple picture books about body safety, consent, and personal space. We'd read them at bedtime like any other story, and when the main character stood up for herself, I'd say, "You do that too, huh?" She'd grin and say, "Of course I would." By now, you might be thinking, I didn't grow up like this. No one talked to me this way. Neither did I. Most of us were raised in silence, shame, or secrecy. But breaking that cycle is exactly how we protect the next generation. The truth is, abusers look for silence. They look for kids who don't know they can say no. They look for kids who won't speak up. But when your daughter walks into the world knowing she can say stop, knowing she can talk to you, knowing her body belongs to her, she's 1,000 times harder to manipulate. There was a moment that sealed this for me. She was around 9, and a boy on the school bus touched her hair without asking. It wasn't extreme, but it made her uncomfortable. That night, she said, "I told him not to touch me. I don't like that, and I told the bus monitor." She said it casually, like it was no big deal. But to me, it was everything, because I knew those little boundaries she defended today would become big boundaries she could defend tomorrow. So if I can leave you with one thing from this part of the story, it's this. Start early, speak clearly, and practice often. You are your daughter's first line of defense, but only if you equip her with words, with choices, and with the knowledge that her body is hers, always. By the time my daughter hit 10, I started to notice something. She wasn't just listening anymore. She was watching, closely. The way I talked about people, the way I reacted to jokes, the way I handled situations that made me uncomfortable. That's when it hit me. Kids learn red flags from the people around them, but only if we show them how to notice. So I started teaching her to read the signs, the subtle ones, the ones that make your stomach twist before your brain catches up. I told her, people who want to hurt others don't always look like bad guys. They can be funny, popular, helpful, even people you admire. That's why you have to listen to how you feel, not just what someone says. We called it creepy radar. Not very scientific, but it worked. One day she asked, "What if someone is super nice to me but gives me a weird feeling?" I told her, "Then listen to that feeling. You don't owe anyone your comfort, not even someone nice." We started talking about grooming in a way she could understand. I said, "Some people test you. They push little boundaries at first. They'll say things like, 'Don't tell anyone we talked about this,' or they'll give you special attention and tell you that you're their favorite. That's not okay." She thought for a second, then asked, "Like if someone gives me a gift but tells me not to tell?" I nodded. "Exactly. Or if they say stuff like, 'This is just our little secret,' and it makes you feel uneasy." I explained that when someone is grooming, they usually start slow. They build trust first, they isolate, they blur lines, and then when something happens, the child is so confused they don't know what to think because the person wasn't bad, or didn't mean it like that, or used to be so kind. I told her it's okay to feel confused, but if anything ever makes you freeze, flinch, or want to pull away, you come tell me. We practiced recognizing red flag behaviors. Adults who want to spend alone time with kids too often. Adults who touch by accident a little too much. People who ask too many personal questions. Anyone who pushes past a no. People who guilt trip her into silence. She asked, "What if it's someone I really like?" And that's where it gets tricky, because abuse isn't always from strangers. Sometimes it's someone close. So I said, if someone makes you feel uncomfortable, even a little, you're allowed to step back. You don't have to explain. You don't have to feel guilty. Your safety comes first. I taught her phrases like, "That's not funny to me. I don't like that. Please stop. That's private. I don't want to talk about it. No thanks. I don't want a hug." And the most powerful one, "I'm going to tell my parents." We also talked about manipulation. I told her some people will twist things to make you feel like you're overreacting. Like, "You're being dramatic. You'll get me in trouble if you tell. It's just a joke. You're so sensitive." That's gaslighting, I said. If someone tries to make you doubt your own feelings, that's a sign something's wrong. One time, she overheard a friend say, "My uncle always wants to give me back rubs even when I say no." And she came to me, worried. She didn't know what to do. I praised her for bringing it up. We talked it through. We figured out how to gently encourage her friend to tell a trusted adult. And I called the friend's mom quietly to make sure it wasn't ignored. Moments like that taught her that red flags aren't just about herself. They're about looking out for others, too. I reminded her often, even if it's someone everyone likes, even if it's someone who's too important to question, you still have the right to feel safe. Always. And I reminded myself, if I want her to call out red flags in others, I need to model it myself. So when someone said something uncomfortable at a family gathering, I didn't laugh it off. I said, "Hey, let's not joke like that." When she saw that, she saw it's okay to speak up, even when it's awkward. Once, a teacher made a sarcastic comment about her body during PE. Not outright cruel, but it stung. She came home and said, It felt weird. I didn't like it. I didn't brush it off. I said, "You trusted that feeling. That's important. Do you want to talk to someone at school together?" And we did. It was handled. That moment showed her that her instincts were valid. That weird feeling in her gut? That matters. Because predators rely on you questioning yourself. They rely on your silence. But if your daughter knows what to look for, if she trusts herself, then she's not an easy target. She becomes someone who notices, who speaks up, who walks away. So teach her the signs. Talk about the almosts and the kind ofs and the did that just happen feelings. Don't wait for something big. Don't wait until it's too late. Equip her now, so when something's off, she'll know it's not just in her head. It's a red flag waving loud and clear. When my daughter was 5, she started asking questions about her body. In the bathtub, brushing her hair, getting dressed, those were the moments when curiosity showed up. I used to feel awkward about it, but I realized something. If I didn't answer, someone else would. And that someone else might not have good intentions. So I decided we would talk about body boundaries early, honestly, and often. Not once. Not as a one-time birds and bees conversation, but as an ongoing part of her life, just like brushing teeth or crossing the street. I started by teaching her the names of all her body parts, including the private ones. No nicknames, no cutesy metaphors. That's your vulva, that's your bottom. Just the truth, calmly and confidently. Why? Because when we give kids vague or silly names, it sends a subtle message. These parts are weird or embarrassing. And if something bad ever happens, they might not have the words to tell us clearly. Language matters. It's power. It's protection. Next, we talked about private parts. Not in a scary way. I told her, these are the parts of your body that are just for you. No one should touch them, look at them, or talk about them unless it's to keep you safe and healthy, like a doctor with me in the room. And then we practiced. Yep, role-playing. I'd say, what if someone at school wants to see your underwear? She'd shout, no. Then we'd giggle. And I'd say, that's right. What if someone touches your bottom when you don't want them to? She'd answer, tell them stop and tell you. And I'd smile and say, exactly. You always tell me. Even if you think it's your fault. Even if they say it's a secret. You always tell me. That word, secret, became a big one in our home. I explained the difference between a surprise and a secret. A surprise is something we'll tell soon, like a birthday gift. A secret is something someone tells you not to tell, especially to me. And if someone says you'll get in trouble for telling me, that's a big sign to tell me right away. She asked, what if they say they'll hurt me? And that was a hard one. But I said, if anyone says that, you still tell me. And I promise I will do everything in my power to keep you safe. You might be wondering, won't this scare her? Won't she start seeing danger everywhere? Actually, no. The opposite. These conversations made her more confident. Because now, instead of a vague sense that bad things happen, she had clear tools. She had phrases to use, people she could trust, and the belief that she had control over her own body. One day, at a family gathering, a well-meaning relative asked for a hug. My daughter said, no thank you, and looked at me. I gave her a little nod, and the moment passed. That was it. No fuss, no guilt trip, just a small win for her boundaries. That's another thing I had to unlearn. The idea that kids owe physical affection. They don't. Not to grandparents, not to friends, not even to me. So I stopped saying, give uncle a hug, and started saying, do you want to give a high five or just wave? I let her decide. Every time she chose, she practiced ownership over her body. And if she said no and someone looked offended, that was their issue, not hers. I protected her right to say no every time. We also talked about gut feelings. I said, if you ever feel yucky around someone, even if they're nice, even if you don't know why, tell me. She asked, even if it's a teacher? Yes, anyone. I didn't want her to think there were safe people based on titles. Safe people are the ones who make her feel safe, not the ones we tell her to trust automatically. I also kept books around the house that helped reinforce the lessons. Simple picture books about body safety, consent, and personal space. We'd read them at bedtime like any other story, and when the main character stood up for herself, I'd say, "You'd do that too, huh?" She'd grin and say, "Of course I would." By now, you might be thinking, I didn't grow up like this. No one talked to me this way. Neither did I. Most of us were raised in silence, shame, or secrecy. But breaking that cycle is exactly how we protect the next generation. The truth is, abusers look for silence. They look for kids who don't know they can say no. They look for kids who won't speak up. But when your daughter walks into the world knowing she can say stop, knowing she can talk to you, knowing her body belongs to her, she's 1,000 times harder to manipulate. There was a moment that sealed this for me. She was around 9, and a boy on the school bus touched her hair without asking. It wasn't extreme, but it made her uncomfortable. That night, she said, "I told him not to touch me. I don't like that. And I told the bus monitor." She said it casually, like it was no big deal. But to me, it was everything. Because I knew those little boundaries she defended today would become big boundaries she could defend tomorrow. So if I can leave you with one thing from this part of the story, it's this: start early, speak clearly, and practice often. You are your daughter's first line of defense, but only if you equip her with words, with choices, and with the knowledge that her body is hers, always. Waiting for continue. It's one thing to talk about safety in theory. It's another to prepare your daughter for real life. Because real life isn't a cartoon villain twirling a mustache. Real life is messier. It's people she knows, places she trusts, situations that start off normal but turn sideways. That's why, after we laid the foundation of trust and boundaries, I started teaching her how to handle the world around her. Not through lectures, but through scenarios. Situations she might actually face. We did it during car rides, while folding laundry, on walks home from school. I'd toss out casual questions like, "What would you do if someone at school said something that made you feel weird?" Or, let's say you're at a sleepover and someone dares everyone to take off their shirts. What do you do? Not to scare her, just to give her practice. These weren't tests. There were no wrong answers. But every conversation was a way to sharpen her instincts. I wanted her to know that danger doesn't always look dangerous. Sometimes it sounds like a joke, or a compliment, or a game. So we talked about tricks. What if someone online says they're your age and wants to meet? Nope, not safe. I'd block them and tell you. What if they say they'll send you money for pictures? Ooh, I'm telling you right away. What if someone says, "Don't tell your parents, it'll ruin everything"? That's exactly when I do tell you. We turned it into a rhythm, a code. If anything ever made her feel nervous, confused, or uncomfortable, her job was simple. Tell me. No matter what. Even if someone she liked told her not to. Even if it seemed not that bad. One day she came home and said a boy at lunch had dared her to kiss him behind the lockers. He told her, "If you don't, I'll tell people you did anyway." She didn't even hesitate. She said no. She walked away. She told me. But here's the important part. I didn't freak out. Because if I had, she might have thought, "I'll never tell her again. She can't handle it." I stayed calm. I praised her courage. I asked if she wanted me to speak to the school or if she wanted to. We worked through it together. That's the secret. Every time she shares something uncomfortable, the way I react teaches her whether it's safe to ever share again. It's not just about the big threats either. It's everyday stuff. A stranger asking for help in a parking lot, a teacher who invades personal space, a friend pressuring her to share a password. I taught her how to spot those little red flags and act. One of the most useful things we ever did? We made a safety circle. 5 people she could always go to if she felt unsafe, scared, or unsure. Me, of course, her dad, her favorite aunt, a neighbor she trusted, and one teacher she really liked. I said, "If you ever need help and I'm not around, find one of these 5. We even had a password, one only she and I knew. If someone ever told her, "Your mom sent me to pick you up," she'd ask for the password. If they didn't know it, she'd run. Was it a little over the top? Maybe, but it gave her power, confidence, the sense that she had tools, not just fear. We talked about online stuff too. She knew not to share photos, names, or locations. She knew how to block, report, and screen people. But more than rules, I gave her reasons. Not because I said so, but because there are people out there who pretend to be something they're not. She got it. She didn't resist. Why? Because I always explain the why, not just the don't. I'll never forget the day she said, "Mom, can I tell you something weird that happened in the group chat?" And she told me. A random user had joined their game server and started asking personal questions. She and her friends kicked him out and reported the account. No panic, no drama, just action. That's when I realized all the little talks were working. But here's what I want to be clear about. This isn't about creating paranoia. I never told her the world is full of bad people. I told her the world is full of people and that she gets to choose how close to stand. Some people are kind, some are confusing, some are dangerous. But she has the right to ask questions, to say no, to walk away, to tell someone. And if she ever gets it wrong, that's okay. She can still come to me. Because mistakes happen, and shame is what abusers use as a weapon. I made sure she knew. Even if she messes up, I'm still here. Even if she breaks a rule, gets tricked, or waits too long to tell me, I will always, always fight for her. That promise matters more than any rule book. So my message to you, if you're a parent, is this. Don't just teach your daughter to obey rules. Teach her to think, to pause, to ask questions, to trust herself. Practice real-world moments, prepare her for them, and when they come, and they will, she'll be ready. There's this myth I used to believe, that speaking up only matters when something really bad happens. That if it's just a weird comment or just a little pressure, it's not worth making noise about. I couldn't have been more wrong. Teaching my daughter to speak up boldly wasn't just about crisis response. It was about building a habit, a muscle. Something she'd be able to flex the moment her body or her heart told her, this isn't right. But I'll be honest, it took time. At first, she was shy about conflict. She didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. If a classmate teased her, she'd just go quiet. If someone pushed a joke too far, she'd pretend to laugh. That's what so many girls are taught, right? Be nice. Don't make trouble. Keep the peace. So I started teaching her that safety is more important than politeness. That no is not rude. That setting a boundary is not unkind. That her voice isn't a weapon, it's a shield. We started with small situations. I told her, if someone takes your pencil without asking and you don't like it, say, please don't do that. If someone interrupts you, say, I wasn't finished. At first she'd hesitate, but each time she did it, she stood a little taller. Then we moved into bigger things. I taught her the words she could use if someone crossed a line. I don't want you to touch me. That makes me uncomfortable. I'm leaving now. I'm going to tell someone. We practiced saying them out loud, at full volume, not whispered, not half-hearted. I'd make a game out of it. Let's hear your strong voice. And she'd shout, stop, and then giggle. But deep down, I knew she was learning. And when she was ready, I told her the truth. Sometimes people won't listen. Sometimes they'll mock you, pressure you, even act like you're the problem. That doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It means you stood up, and standing up always matters. One day she came home from school upset. A boy had made a gross comment during lunch. She told him, that's not okay, and he laughed and said, relax, it's just a joke. She didn't back down. She walked away and reported it. She wasn't asking permission to speak up. She wasn't afraid to cause a scene. She knew she had the right to defend her space, her body, her dignity. And here's the key. When she told me about it, I didn't make her feel small. I didn't say, boys will be boys, or ignore him. I said, I'm proud of you. That took guts. I validated her feelings. I honored her voice. Because every time a girl speaks up and is dismissed, she learns to stay quiet. And silence is where abuse thrives. That's why I also made sure she knew how to report things. Not just to me, but to teachers, counselors, coaches. I explained the steps. I role-played it with her. I said, let's pretend your friend tells you someone touched her in a way she didn't like. What could you do? She said, go with her to the school office. Bingo. And I told her, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to shake. But your truth is still your truth. Say it anyway. Because here's the heartbreaking reality. Many kids do try to speak up, but they're ignored or punished or told, don't ruin someone's life. That's why I kept saying over and over, no matter what happens, if you tell me something hard, I'll believe you, even if it's confusing, even if it involves someone we know. I remember the day she looked at me and said, if I ever told you something like that, you wouldn't get mad at me, right? I said, no, sweetheart. I'd get mad at the situation. I'd get mad at the person who hurt you, but not at you. Never you. That reassurance is everything, because shame is the weapon that abusers count on, and the only antidote is unconditional safety. And here's something else I had to learn. Speaking up isn't just about danger. It's also about asserting space in everyday life. I encouraged her to speak up when she didn't understand something in class. She was left out by friends. She was interrupted or talked over. Each time she used her voice, it strengthened her sense of self. We even made a confidence list together, moments when she spoke up and how it felt. Like the time she told a coach she didn't feel comfortable with a certain drill, or the time she told a friend's older brother to stop calling her princess, or when she told me that she didn't like the way I rushed her through a story one night. I apologized and thanked her for saying it, because building her voice meant letting her use it on me, too. So if you're a parent or a caregiver listening to this, here's what I want you to know. Your daughter's voice is not just a sound. It's a boundary. It's a warning. It's a declaration. And it's your job to make sure it stays strong, no matter who tries to silence it. Let her practice. Let her mess up. Let her reword and try again. But always make sure she knows her words matter. And when the moment comes, because it will, when someone crosses a line and she's standing there, unsure what to do, she won't freeze. She won't crumble. She'll speak. She'll act. And she'll know exactly what to say. It was a quiet night when she asked me the question I didn't know I'd been waiting for. Mom, if something ever did happen, like really bad, would you still love me the same? I didn't answer right away. I looked at her, my daughter, her eyes cautious, unsure, looking for any flicker of judgment in my face. And I told her the truth with everything in me. There is nothing that could ever make me stop loving you. If anything ever happened, I wouldn't be angry at you. I'd be angry for you. I'd protect you. I'd believe you. I'd never let you go through it alone. That's what Section 6 is all about. Not just building her awareness or her instincts or her voice, but building her safety net. Because no matter how strong or brave or smart your daughter is, she still needs to know that when the world shakes her, you will not walk away. This section was the most emotional one for me as a parent. Because here's the hard truth. You can do everything right, and your child can still be hurt. So what happens after matters just as much as what you taught her before. I told her that even if someone she trusted hurt her, even if she felt ashamed, even if she broke a rule or stayed silent too long, she could always come to me. There was nothing she could say that would make me love her less. That's not just words. That's a promise. And I backed it up with actions. When I saw news stories about abuse, I didn't shield her. I asked if she wanted to talk about it. I said, if something like that ever happened to someone we know, you'd tell me, right? She'd nod and I'd say, because I'd do everything to help. Every single thing. Sometimes I'd say it randomly, at dinner, on a walk, in the car. You know I'd believe you, no matter what, right? She'd roll her eyes. I know, Mom. Even if it was someone I liked? Yes, Mom. Even if you thought it was your fault? Okay, now you're being dramatic. We'd laugh, but I knew it mattered. I was reinforcing the bridge, so that if the time ever came, she wouldn't hesitate. I also made sure she saw how I supported others. When a friend shared that her daughter had been hurt by a relative, I didn't question her. I didn't ask, are you sure? I stood by her. I brought over food. I sat with her in silence. And I let my daughter see that kind of loyalty, that kind of presence. Because support isn't just believing your child, it's knowing what to do. We talked about going to a trusted adult, reporting to school or local authorities, getting a medical checkup, going to counseling, speaking up again if no one listens the first time. And I told her, some people might not believe you right away, but I will, and I will help you find someone who does. We keep speaking until someone hears. I also reminded her, your healing matters more than anyone's reputation, more than their job, more than their family name, more than their future. You matter most. Because one of the deepest lies abuse survivors carry is the fear that their pain is an inconvenience to others, that their truth will hurt the people they love. I wanted my daughter to know, her truth doesn't destroy families, secrets do. And it wasn't just words. I made my behavior match. When she messed up, I didn't jump to punish. I asked what happened. I listened. I worked with her, not against her. Because if I can't handle the little confessions calmly, how will she trust me with the big ones? One time, she came to me trembling because she broke a rule about messaging someone online. I could see it in her eyes. She expected me to explode. But I didn't. I said, "Thank you for telling me. Let's figure out what to do next." She broke into tears, not because she was afraid, but because she realized I was still on her side. That's what this is all about. Your daughter is going to face things you can't always see. But if she knows, deeply knows, that you're in her corner no matter what, she's not just protected by rules or lessons. She's protected by your love. And that's stronger than anything. So here's my message to every parent out there. Your daughter doesn't just need you to warn her. She needs you to believe her, to sit with her in the discomfort, to fight for her even when it's messy, even when it's someone you know, even when it hurts. She needs to know that if the day ever comes when the worst happens, she can crawl into your arms, look into your eyes, and hear you say, "I'm here, I believe you. We'll get through this," and that you'll mean it. Waiting for finish the script